one of the best things to talk about, because like a failure is one of the greatest lessons. You figure out what doesn't work. So for me, that was like my wake-up call to be like, someone would be like, oh man, you lost your shop. I'm like, no, I didn't. I gained 2. See, like me, like I like to tell kids, right? I'm like, there's 2 types of mentors. There's mentors that preach from theory and those that preach from experience, and you need both. I don't mind you changing the neighborhood, but don't leave it out. Don't change the neighborhood and then the neighborhood that was here, that you kick them out. You don't give them a place to go. You don't give them a leg to stand on. How fair is that?
Hi everyone, my name is Bautista. This is The Change with Bautista. Today we're going to talk with Junior Lugo. He is the owner of and host, right, of this space for us to do this podcast. Just have a conversation with everyday people about the change they want to see in their communities. Junior, thank you so much for joining us today and having this conversation with us.
Thank you for the invite.
Now, we always have these conversations on the community. You grew up here,
right.
But I want people to get to know that part of you as well. Start by telling us, were you born here?
I was born in what was St. Mary's Hospital, and my family been here since like 1966. I want to say my grandfather came here, and my mother's parents also came in 64, the year before she was born. So I've been here for a while. My parents were born in Jersey City, and they were raised here in Hoboken. And so I was born and raised here.
No, yeah, we met each other in high school.
Right.
But you're older than me.
Right, not by much, but more.
2 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
My
senior year was what, your sophomore year, I believe.
Yeah, you were 2002, I think?
Oh,
2003? Yeah, I finished 2004.
Yeah, so it was a year.
And so it was a year. But we connected because I saw that you had the barbershop. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, I went to high school with him.
Right.
And I wanted to connect right away.
Right.
When did you, let me go back actually. Who did you live here in Hoboken with?
I lived here with my mother and my grandfather. I lived on Jackson Street. I lived in 120 Jackson to be specific. I lived on Jackson Street when there was a lumber yard, a gas station, and my next door neighbor was like the vice principal. Well, he was the baseball coach, Mr. Gonzalez, and his father-in-law owned the gas station across the street from my home. And now, I mean, the change that I've seen it's crazy, because where they used to park the garbage trucks is a park for kids now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
A lot of different things that I never would have imagined as a kid. You know what I mean? Is amazing to see as an adult. You know how they repurpose that.
They used to have a bike shop on 2nd between Jackson and Monroe.
It was a lowrider club.
Yeah.
And it was actually it was a recording studio as well. And
that I didn't know.
Frankie Rui recorded one of his first albums there, Mano Moreno. That these are legendary musicians, Jimmy Bosch. These are all guys that are legends and had a hand in crafting, you know, salsa, and they would be there day in, day out, hanging out. Charlie was the guy that owned the garage, and you know, they would be there just hanging out, building lowriders and making music.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's something that I've heard a lot, that there used to be salsa legends that would come and you know, perform in Hoboken. Yeah, it's something I wish we could recover too, you know. And I think we have the spotlight and we have the spaces in order to do it. I think we need that, especially to bring about that diversity and that community that we still have, you know.
Right. I mean, that would be great. I mean, I remember being a little boy and going to St. Francis feast. St. Francis used to have a feast. I don't really remember that, but they used to be in the parking lot. They used to set up the stage, and you would see like Tito Rojas there, or Frankie Rui performing, and so many other artists, you know what I mean? And, you know, we haven't seen that in a long time, but...
We used to have in St. Anne's Festival.
Yes,
Latin night.
Latin night, yeah. And on the waterfront as well. Yeah. We used to have a parade. There used to be a Puerto Rican Day parade. They did away with that. They did away with, I think, the Irish parade as well. Pretty much like all the things that we had growing up, like that culture, that those people that came in were fundamental to this city. Those blue collar workers that established this, like they kind of like lost their voice. You know what I mean? Like, luckily we still have St. Anne's Feast, and it's able to be, you know, seen for whatever's left of what it used to be. You know what I mean? But it would be nice to see that.
Yeah, no, definitely. What did you used to do in high school? What were you active on?
I played baseball for a little bit. I always cut hair. I mean, I kind of knew I wasn't gonna be a pro baller. So lucky enough for me, I went pro in the sport that I chose. You know what I mean? I was interested in business. I had taken a business class my senior year with Mr. Ben David.
Yeah.
And he was amazing because he was a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a lawyer, so I thought. So I took the law class with him, and he's like, you see why I'm not doing it? And I was like, I get it. I don't like it.
He used to have those conversations with a lot of us. That he was kind of like, he was actually the one that when I went to NJCU, we did a school tour.
Okay.
And he was part of one of the teachers there, and he would look at me and he'd be like, you got to check out NJCU. Because he knew my status too as an undocumented student.
Right.
So he was like, you should really check out and think about NJCU as the college to go to. And I was like, okay, cool. And you know, he introduced a lot of those things.
Right.
We had a few teachers that were like that. Now, Mr. Gonzalez, was it Mr. G from ESL classes that you talked about earlier, or was another Mr. Gonzalez that was the baseball coach?
He was. I believe he was a ESL teacher, if I'm not mistaken. He used to have like the slick back.
Yeah, so he was the ESL teacher there too. I didn't take ESL in Hoboken High, but I had a bunch of friends that were taking ESL during Hoboken High and played soccer with me and stuff. So that's how I knew Mr. G. I didn't know because of the baseball, because I never played baseball.
Yeah, well, he was a baseball coach. I graduated with his son, Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin. Kevin was in everything, by the way.
Yeah, Kevin.
He had
Kevin
every single club, every single sport. He was in football, he was in baseball.
Drama, everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was my neighbor, but I didn't really hang out with him till I got to high school.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, we could build a good friendship, and then I got into cutting hair, and they put me in a work program. So my sophomore year, all the way up to my senior year, I would leave school at 1, and I would go to the barbershop and cut hair.
Which barbershop?
I worked at, my first shop I worked in was a place called House of Fades. It was up in Union City. It was like on 45th and Palisade. I worked there for about 3 months, and then I went to work at a shop called Park Avenue Styles. And I was there from the age of 17 to the age of 25. And then I struck out on my own. I tried to open my own shop in Weehawken on 25th Street in Palisade. And it didn't really pan out. I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't have anybody to guide me and be like, look, these are the steps that you have to take. This is what you do. So I was, you know, I guess the price of not knowing how to do business, right? Which was a good lesson.
I think it's what we talked about a few times also, was the power of mentorship.
Right.
And you always come back to that too. When
Amazing,
you're talking community, when you're talking high school, you're like, you know, we need more mentors. We need more people to tell them, hey, I already went through that path and that wasn't the way.
Right.
This is something that worked for me. Maybe you could take some of those ideas too and run with it.
Sometimes what doesn't work for you is like one of the best things to talk about, because like a failure is one of the greatest lessons. You figure out what doesn't work. So for me, that was like my wake up call to be like, someone would be like, oh man, you lost your shop. I'm like, no, I didn't. I gained 2. I have a shop in Cliffside Park and I have a shop in Hoboken. I might have closed that door, but it opened up so many more for me, and we have a product line. You know what I mean? So it's like, sometimes it's worth going through that hardship so that you can get to where you need to really be at.
And sometimes you got to test the theory in order to figure out what the best way it is to go. Also, because people can tell you like all the experiences that they can, but until you actually put it to practice, to actually try it out, you know, this is the same thing with me and in politics, you know, and running for office as an everyday person. It's, you know, I had to figure it out. And I had a theory of how I could approach it.
Right.
But until I practice it, talking to people, right? And then
Right.
talking to people, how are they going to see it? How are they going to respond? What's the best way to approach a topic? What's the best way to build coalitions, build a crew of people that will push the same way, right? Until you actually test it out, you don't know if it's going to work.
No, you don't. See, like me, like I like to tell kids, right? I'm like, there's two types of mentors. There's mentors that preach from theory and those that preach from experience. And you need both. You need both because someone will tell you these great ideas they've never done and never had the opportunity to take that leap of faith, but they have this this information based off analytics. They go to school, they hear all this information, and then you have someone who's probably scorned, and they're giving you information, and you're like, it kind of sounds like he's a Debbie Downer, but he's telling you something that he's been through, and that can be your reality as well. So you have to hear both sides of the fence so that you know where to build yours.
So, something on the professional side too, because I have a full-time job, 9 to 5, and when I talk about my work, I don't just say, this is what I do. It's like I've been doing this for 11 years, multicultural marketing. That's on my professional side, right? So what I'm saving, the institution or the employer or whoever, it's 11 years of figuring out how to do this, right? Because I already went through it. Right. I think that's the same thing that you're like, okay, I have this many years on my belt because I've been developing that idea and that work in order for me to really show the results, and you can save that time to other business partners as well.
Yeah, you get to compound your time. You figure out, look, I did this, and it didn't work. So don't do that. Like now I tell people, depending on, you have to know, like in my industry, right? Let's talk about what I do. In my industry, I realized the demographics that I chase and the towns that I like to be in, it's best for me to hire an expediter, an architect, someone that's gonna go in and represent me, right? Because sometimes you go into these towns that are closed-minded, and what they see is like, oh no, he's gonna bring a different crowd. That's not what I want. And that was my experience in Weehawken, right? I went in there thinking that, clean cut, whatever, and they're like, nah, not gonna happen, kid. I learned my lesson. Even though I was home in Hoboken and I knew people, I didn't take the chance because I said it's not personal, this is business. So let me go get someone to represent me and do it the way you're supposed to do it. And I've done it like that ever since. I don't go in there, I hire somebody, do my blueprints, do all my meetings for the zoning, the variance, whatever the case may be. And it helps me work on other things, like on the business, as far as I have to go get a fabricator, or if I have to get business cards, or sit with someone from my product development team. You know what I'm saying? So those were little things that I had to tweak so that I can enhance my business and further myself in my industry.
Something that I've seen, and you could tell me what your perspective is on that, is I feel like there's that lack of transparency in terms of opening up a business in different cities, in Hoboken, in Jersey City,
right,
that you've seen also. That you come in, you're like, all right, based on what I have seen, this is what I need in order to open up a shop. Have you found, because I've heard from a few people, have you found that then there's some things, because they're not clearly written, right? That this is what you need in order to open up the shop,
right,
that then delay your opening throughout the process of opening up a shop?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in my personal experience, it's more so where you do your business. Like if you do business in Union City, you have to understand, you have to go in and say, okay, how long is it for me to pull a permit? When is the next time are the plans going into review? What's the timeline that you guys are working on right now? Is it 90 days? Is it 120 days? Because these are things that you have to factor into your budget. You might get 90 days to fix the establishment, but when those 90 days up and you need another month or two. They're on the hook for the rent.
Now, is that information that you have to go in and knock on doors and like try to find out? It's not something that you just look up on the computer.
No, there's no computer work for that. You have to go into those offices and you have to ask them and say, you know, how long is it going to take to get a permit? Like, how busy are you guys? And then normally they tell you, you know, it's going to take 90 days for, let's just say 30 days to get a permit for plumbing. And it's going to take another 30 days before the next meeting. So now they're telling you it's going to take 60 days because then you have to go through three inspections, you know, for your roughing, and then you have to go for your final, and then you have to go for your CO. So those are 3 inspections just of one type of work you're doing on the establishment. So you have to make sure that you have the finances to cover that, because a lot of small businesses, people aren't prepared for that. They come in and then they're bootstrapping, I mean they're paying out of pocket. They're, you know, and they don't have the money for that, so they suffer liquidated damages. They're paying out of their savings, you know. So these are things that if there were programs to say, you want to be an entrepreneur, what's the field you want to be in? These are the requisites that you have to go through so that you can be successful, or at least have a fighting chance, because the rest of it is up to you. The experience you provide, the attitude you show up with, you know what I mean? And just overall the quality of the business that you want to have.
So it's building that pipeline at the government side. So that way you're not trying to piecemeal all the information of what you need in order to open up a business, but something more centralized that you're like, boom, 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 I know what I need in order to get the shop going. This is the timeline that I need. Because right now, you know, everybody has to really start from scratch pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Unless you know somebody that already does.
Sink or swim.
Sink or swim.
See,
That's how I learn English too.
Like we got the multi-service center, right?
Yeah.
You're from Hoboken, right? Yeah. Anybody else here from Hoboken, born and raised, that knows what the multi-service center is?
It's the one by the senior building too. Right. It's on Right on.
You ever seen it? What do they do there? What multiple services are they giving us?
They got a paid league going on there.
I'm just saying, they have a facility that they can say, listen, once a month, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna teach you we're gonna give you financial education. We're gonna teach you how to open up a business. We're gonna have a program for these kids to come in and keep them off the street so that you don't see them getting shot down in the neighborhood. Right? I mean, with as much money they make off tickets in this city, I think they could funnel at least 3% and kick back to the community.
And like I said too, is something that the county government level too.
Right.
Especially when we're talking about violence, you know, the reduction programs.
Right.
And you and I have talked about some ideas on that end too.
The kids are bored, they don't have nothing to do. You get kicked out the park at a certain time, you know, there's no leagues anymore.
And the Mama Johnson field gets locked up and you don't know when they open. They open up for the paid leagues only. You gotta climb out the fence in order to go play there.
You have to have a bright green shirt and kick a ball to get on that field. Meanwhile, you're born and raised there. You look out the window and you see the field and you can't play on it. That's, I mean, you're poking the bear at that point. You know what I'm saying? You're giving them a reason to be bitter and resentful towards you. But you want to create a relationship. How? I don't understand.
How do you see, what would you like to see in order to build that relationship?
I mean, the same way they have those teams, let the kids from the neighborhood sign up and play on that field. Give them a chance to play kickball.
Have programs.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, this city, every time I turn around, they're either, and I love the city, and I'm not saying it just, I'm like far right or far left. I'm just saying from a perspective as a parent.
And it's what I'm saying too is like change is about how you make those change for the better. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, because I'm for the change. You know, people are all gentrifying neighborhoods. I like that. I don't mind you changing the neighborhood, but don't leave it out. Don't change the neighborhood, and then the neighborhood that was here, that you kick them out. You don't give them a place to go. You don't give them a leg to stand on. How fair is that?
You make it nicer, but now you can't afford to live here.
You make it nicer, but you can't play on it. I changed the field.
And that's what I would hear some people too. Is like, oh, they're not making it for me.
Right.
Because I'm not going to be able to live here.
But that's not their fault.
3 years or 5 years.
They don't think like that because they chose to think like that.
Mm-hmm. They think like that because that's the experience that they've seen.
That's what they've been proven. Yeah. That's what's been proven to them.
It keeps happening.
You know, get off the field, lock it up. You can't play on here. Why not? This is my backyard.
And you know, even the first time I brought it up about the Mama Johnson field years ago, and somebody asked me, I'm not gonna say who, was like, since when do you care about the sports fields? I'm like, I got receipts. I got an op-ed I wrote in 2017. I got an interview I did in 2018. Like we've been talking about this, right? But when I first brought it up, because I first started talking to the people who are managing, right? And back then, like 2016, the conversation was like, well, it's because it's dangerous. And I was like, you know, like if you take examples, again, going back to learning from other people's experiences, in Medellin, in Colombia, one of the ways they improve safety was by opening up sports fields in the most dangerous neighborhoods. And they would keep them open until late at night because then people had something to do also. People had a way to interact. It was counter to what, you know, the management at that time was saying why they want to keep it locked up and not open unless they had a paid league. And you know, like having parks is a good thing. Having parks with programming
is a better thing. Right.
Because you need some type of organization. You need some type of motivation. I know that in the multi-service, the library has a site there that they can open, that they have open. We have the library annex at 4th and Jackson, between Jackson and Marshall. But I was saying, like, even those spaces, like, how do we make them open more time, right? And sometimes it's about tying the resources together. Like, the library's already doing something, but how can the county government then also partner up with those entities that have something that has limited hours and expanding it? How do you partner up with the city in order? You need that macro vision in order to get everything to work together and not just in silos, you know?
Right. I mean, I just feel like it shouldn't be limited to like just that field. I think that the kids from the city should have access to anything in the city, any park in the city. Like, okay, you're from the 4th Ward, so you're not allowed to go play up there in the Legion Park. You're not allowed to play in the waterfront. You can't go to the skate park. Like, this city's a square mile. I mean, I played everywhere. Growing up here, you know what I mean? I feel like they shouldn't feel pigeonholed to only be here. No, you can't. No, this is like, let them play anywhere. Let them feel welcomed to play anywhere they want to play at. You know what I mean? And give them platforms for different things. Like, put the lacrosse league there. I only see it up there on the field on 14th Street.
Yeah, 16th, I think.
I'm sure if you brought that down here, the kids will play. You know, like, I don't know. I just would like to see the kids have more things to do, whatever it is. Like, there's so many talented kids. It's not just sports, man. Like, that's the thing. Like, I feel like when you just focus on sports, you make kids that are not athletic feel like they don't have something special. But there's kids that are good with cameras. There's kids that are good with painting, with so many different things. And it's like you only concentrate on the sports. What about engineers, musicians? Like, there's so many different things you can do. They have a Hope Festival. Why not set up a night in the multi and teach kids how to paint on canvas? I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of things.
And that's what came up in the last conversation with Liz and Doy, that told you she's an artist. Right. And she was saying one of her dreams is for there to be an art space that anybody can walk in, paint their canvas, leave the canvas there, come back another day, and it's still there. So then it's open to the community. Right. And that's something that we should be really striving for, is having those open spaces for art, for music, for those kind of activities. Because like you said, it's not just one size fits all. It's just everybody's sports. Right. Actually, it was something that happened in a lot of in many countries, like in Ecuador too, where I'm from, it was like the way to go was you had to make it playing soccer, right?
Right.
Then what's the rate of people making it in sports? When you can make it into business, and that's something you brought up too with the barbershop and with getting people into the business mindset as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the high school at one time had cosmetology program. I mean, I personally would love to help with that. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you want to be a barber or you want to be a hairstylist, but there's levels to certain things you have to do. Like, if you go to school during high school, like if you went to Voltech in Teterboro, right? They graduate their senior year with a cosmetology license if they do the cosmetology program. You just saved that kid $22,000 and 1,200 hours of his life. So that when he graduates or she graduates, they can go directly into their field. Because it's not just, okay, I got my license, but you need continuing education. You have to go to the color companies like Redken or Alpha Parf or L'Oreal, which is the mother company of Redken, and pay for extra classes on how to do different types of styles like balayage or highlights or lowlights or whatever it is in the field that's new. You have to pay for that. And those classes are $500, $1,500, $2,000, $5,000, depending on who you take the class with. So they can focus their time after school, after high school, in what they do, in the field, behind the chair, like we say, behind the chair, and hopefully, in a few years, they be the next Lions Den or Trim or the next Lorraine's or the next DMVs, whatever. The next you. Just you have an opportunity to feed your family forever.
And that's the thing too, is like that. Like the high school diploma alone doesn't.
No, it doesn't
do anything.
You need it to get into cosmetology school.
Yeah, but it's kind of like what I used to talk about back in the day too, was if we had the associate's program from Hudson County Community College,
right,
as part of, like, you could take classes during high school so that when you graduate high school, you also have a associate's degree.
Right.
And that's something that later on they incorporated. So then that way you know, that's what I had to do. I had to like do my associate's degree right after high school. You could save that person 2 years of school by just finishing up during high school. Then you can start getting a higher paid job right off the bat. Right. Same thing with cosmetology and another type of careers that you can sum up to.
I think like I would like to see also is just teaching like just financial education, just how to manage the money, because unfortunately, like being Latino, I know we come from a background of suggestive people. They're not direct. They don't really, you know, if you have a Lexus, it doesn't matter if it's from '89. The perception of having that vehicle makes you feel like you're winning, right? Or you have money. But the true wealth is in the knowledge that they don't have, and then they don't understand. They think it's the money. You chase the money, you chase the money, by the time you reach it, you get a ditch. You're 6 feet deep, and that's it. It's over. But if you was to teach the finances, how money works, where to put your money, life insurance, term, full life insurance, these are things that are not taught in these communities, and then you expect them to just understand and make it without giving them all those tools that other neighborhoods have, you know. And then it goes down to like the system is broken. They don't teach you what you need for life.
They expect you to learn that as part of like that generation, like
it's a generational
information.
curse.
But if the generation before us didn't have that information, then we don't. We have to figure out on the fly, right?
So I said it's a generational curse. It's not broken because you wasn't taught. Your father wasn't taught. Your grandfather wasn't taught. Say, hey, you know, if you was to buy, you know, some full life insurance by the time your kid's 18, he can take a percentage of that money and invest it and do a business. Or he can buy a house and now he'll have income from the property or whatever. You know, he'll have earned income from a property, or giving them the financial freedom that
Yeah.
is really needed.
So we're coming at time, but I wanted to make sure you have some space, and you've talked about it a bit throughout the conversation.
Right.
What is the change you want to see in the community?
I want to see the kids get invested into more. I would like to see that. If I see nothing else, and not just sports, but other things like if you go into the Monroe Center, they have a rocket ship class, right? So they teach the kids technology, how to build stuff, how to build robots, and they have pottery classes. Like, why can't the city have something like that for the kids? I mean, yeah, I guess it takes money, but those tickets are not $5, and they write a lot of them. And when those ball crows come around, those $2,000 or $4,000 fines, like, where are those funds allocated? You know what I'm saying? I'm sure that even like I wouldn't mind donating my time if they had a program or somewhere that I could come in and say, hey, look, I'll help you guys out, once a month or whatever the case may be.
But it's even better when it's part of the system already.
Right.
Since we're already pooling our resources together through taxes, let's put that money free to use so that will create that systemic change.
Right.
And really look out for the kids, like you said.
Yeah, they got to look out for these kids. They're our future, man, and they're not giving them any hope. And when a person loses hope, I mean, what do they really have?
And I feel like we've been talking about that since we were in high school.
Yeah.
We've been hearing about that. It's like we should be doing something.
It bothers me to be from this community, and I'm blessed to be successful because I work hard, but I've been embraced by the neighborhood, and it bothers me to see kids that come here and read in the paper that one of them are hurt or things like that. Like, that bothers. A lot of times I see these kids grow up, and then I see them in the paper that they're hurt, they got hurt. And it's like, maybe if that has something to do, you know what I mean? They want to run off from the field that they watch. And, flag football or soccer or lacrosse or whatever, kickball. Like, give them something to do.
Something as basic as that.
That's it.
Brother, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And we're going to actually stick around for some questions, but I appreciate the time, the space. There needs to be more spaces like this to have these conversations with the community, and love the knowledge and the conversations that we have, but with the idea to push that change.
Yep.
Thank you, brother.
Whatever you need from me, I'm always here. Know that.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you so much for watching The Change with Ron Bautista. Please don't forget to follow us in Facebook, on Instagram, Ron Bautista NJ. You can also check out our website, ronbautistanj.com/The Change.